this is Beverly from scrapandthread.blogspot.com. I wanted to show you today a simple way to make pinwheel rosettes that doesn't require any special tools. I know a lot of people have been making rosettes that look similar to this. There's a leftover one that I have. I haven't embellished it yet, where you just take a strip of paper and you fold it up in like accordion fold it, and then you make it into a pinwheel or a rosette, and then you can embellish it and attach it to a scrapbook page or a card or a home decor item. These are ones that I've used different scissors or punches for, and I wanted to show you just a real simple way to make it another way without having to use special tools. You can use regular cardstock or any color, or you can use decorative paper. You want to have it be a little bit thicker. You don't want real thin paper, because when you're folding it, it's easy to rip. And the first thing that you do to get your edge is you'll want to rip it. And you just figure out about how wide you want your flower to be, and realize that when you have a flower that you make, your strip of paper is going to make it, it's almost doubled up. So for instance, this outside flower here is, it was a 1.5 inches wide, and once it was made into a flower, it became a little over 3 inches, because of course there's a little gap in the middle. So first you want to figure out how wide you want it to be, and then you just tear your paper. And this is really fun and easy, and doesn't take very long at all, but it gives you kind of a cool edge that you're going to get. It's very organic looking. It makes it unusual. Obviously no two are ever going to be the same. I like to ink the edges of my paper so that it shows up as looking a little more rustic. So this was chocolate colored ink, in case you were wondering about the color. The paper I'm using here is called Colonial White cardstock, and it's from Close to My Heart. I prefer to use this scoring tool that I have. It's a Martha Stewart tool, and the reason why I like it is because it has lots of little grooves, and each one of them is marked. And when I want something to be fairly accurate, and be able to use it so that I can double up my flowers, I want to make sure that all of my score lines are going to be evenly spaced. And what I mean by doubling it up is when I put two of my pinwheels together, where they're kind of stuck down on top of each other, and then the whole thing is glued, rather than having two separate flowers, one on top of each other, which were glued separately. So I would go through and I'm scoring every 1/4 of an inch to make this so that it's very uniform. And then after I get done scoring it, I'm going to accordion fold it. Now, I told you in the beginning you didn't need any special tools, and some of you might think, well, this is a special tool that you're using, and you're right, I would think it is. So what you can do if you don't have this contraption is possibly you have a regular cutter like this, where it's just a regular blade cutter, and you can use this to score as well. You can use a regular bone folder, and what you do is you would line up your paper and figure out the 1/4 inch, and I'm going to move the blade out of the way so that I don't accidentally cut my paper, and I'm going to score right in the groove where normally you would cut with that blade, but now I'm going to use my bone folder. So there's 1/4 of an inch, and I scooch it over. There's 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to scooch it over again. Anyway, you just keep doing that. So you could possibly use this if you liked that idea, or if you don't have one of these or you don't want to use this for whatever reason, you could use a regular ruler. And this ruler is nice. It's a close to my heart ruler. It has lots of markings on it in different increments of 1/4 inch and 1/16 of an inch, and it also has little holes for poking, for sewing, and marking up like where you want to put your brads so that they're evenly spaced. And this is very simple to use as well. You would just mark off with your ruler. I'm hoping it's showing up on the video. And you're going to mark every 1/4 of an inch. So here I've already started, and I'm sorry for the angle here, but in order for me to be able to see, you line up where your 1/4 of an inch is on your last indentation where you've scored it. Hold the ruler down on top of your paper and use your bone folder again and make the next score line. Scooch it up 1/4 of an inch and score it again. So those are a few different ways to be able to score. I want to show you also how you would want to tear if you're using a decorative paper. A decorative paper, the only reason why it matters which way you would tear it is because if you want to see one side in your rosette rather than the other side, then it does matter how you rip it, because the fibers of the paper will show up in a certain way. So on this paper, I would prefer to have the blue side showing. So I'm going to rip it from the green side, and I just lay it down, and I start to do my ripping here. And I want it to be a little jiggity-jaggedy and wavy, so that's why I kind of go back and forth with it. If you want to have it really zigzaggy, you can certainly make it more zigzaggy that way. And I don't know if you can see now what I was talking about by the reason why it matters which way you were ripping it, is if it's important to you that you have this inside rough edge showing, then you want to rip it from the opposite side. And then once again, for me, I would probably sponge it with an ink that was complementary to it. This happens to be Sky, and here's an example of one that I did earlier. And I like the fact that it has these peculiar shapes, because I would use this on something that I wanted to have a little bit of a kind of a funky feel to it. And with this, after I accordion fold it, and by accordion fold I just mean going back and forth, where you push down and push to the back, push down, push to the back, and so you keep going and going, and once you've done that, you'll get this whole long strip that looks like an accordion. And then when you have that part done, here's an example of one that I had done earlier. You would glue this down. I used my ATG gun, and you glue that together. And then when you go to glue it down into a pinwheel, you just push it down, and that's going to make your pinwheel. In this case, I already glued it, and I used a double-sided adhesive that worked pretty well for this weight of paper. It's a little bit lighter than cardstock. However, I tried one with the cardstock, and it keeps bouncing up and down. I normally don't use this adhesive. I normally use my hot glue gun. I was just trying to see if this would work better, and since my hot glue gun doesn't reach over here for my video, I thought, well, I'll try this. But the only way you figure out whether or not things work is by trying them. So here's a larger one, and they look like little lampshades when you have them all folded and glued. And if I was to do it where I wanted two separate flowers, I could go ahead and put the little glue blob on the back and make two separate ones, and then they would sit, it would sit on top of another rosette if I wanted it to be that way. However, I know for this particular rosette, I don't want that to happen. I want them to be made into one flower. So I would stick this smaller one on top where it looks like that, and then I would smash it down again, and this is where I would use my hot glue gun, and I would make a little blob of hot glue and then kind of reach up and put it down on top and hold it as it forms into my pinwheel. And then when it's all done, it will resemble one that where it's got the two different ones together. This was made with a punch. And I'm going to make another video that shows how to make the decorative edge punches into florets also. So that's how that works. And then once you're all finished, you would take your rosette or your pinwheel and embellish it with whatever you want to. On some of them, I put little metal findings. Other ones, like the one I just showed you, I had made this little rosette out of seam binding ribbon. So this is one way to make some rosettes. It's one way that it's easy, it's fast, it doesn't take a lot of tools, and I hope that it's helpful to you if you want to learn how to make these yourself. Anyway, thank you for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, I do have lots of pictures up on my blog that have all of these different examples and which punches I used, or scissors, or decorative technique to be able to make these. And my blog address is scrapandthread.blogspot.com. Thanks so much.